Each day, two nations converge on the Cordova Bridge. This bridge links a modest Texas border town with one of Mexico's fastest-growing cities. Together, El Paso and Juarez form the world's largest international border community. This is the new frontier, where two diverse cultures, economies, and governments merge into one sprawling international metroplex. 20 years ago, Sovereign Grace Ministries ventured across this border to adopt a small church in Juarez that had begun as a group of young adults meeting in a park. It was the first international church in the Sovereign Grace family. 12 years later, the thriving Juarez church sent a team back across this bridge to start a Spanish-speaking church in El Paso. These two churches share the same language and a similar cultural heritage, but their geography creates a tangible disparity in day-to-day life and ministry. On the U.S. side, Misión de Gracia exists to reach Hispanic immigrants with the gospel in their primary language. On the Mexico side, Sovereign Grace Church of Juarez is taking a bold stand for evangelical Christianity in a city of instant urbanization and freewheeling crime. In both nations, the mission of Sovereign Grace is the same: to reach Hispanic people wherever they are with the good news of Christ's redemption, and to see them established and flourishing in gospel-centered churches.
La necesidad de plantar iglesias hispanas en Estados Unidos la veo yo que conforme va pasando el tiempo es una mayor necesidad, ya que el número de hispanos sigue en aumento. Estamos viendo cómo la inmigración no se ha detenido, por lo tanto, las personas que vienen de otros países a Estados Unidos, en este caso hispanos, les toma más tiempo el poderse adaptar a un ambiente religioso en otro idioma que no es el de ellos. El adorar a Dios, el leer la palabra de Dios, el entender la palabra de Dios y aplicarla a sus vidas es muchísimo más fácil cuando lo hace uno en su lengua materna. And you can be fluent in the language, for example, myself, even though I understand, I read, I speak, it is not the same. It is not the same worshiping God in my language than doing it in any other language. El Evangelio es para nosotros importantísimo comunicarlo de la manera más clara y porque al final de cuentas es lo que va a cambiar la vida de las personas. Entonces es necesario plantar iglesias hispanas por la cantidad de hispanos que hay aquí. Necesitamos nosotros buscar cómo los alcanzamos. Entonces eso nos ha abierto puertas en las vidas de muchas personas que son hispanas.
Language, however, is only one aspect to consider in reaching other cultures. There are varying economic and social factors that present specific challenges to local pastors.
Ciudad Juárez and El Paso comprise a metroplex of about 3 million people. Both of these cities are connected by a bridge, divided by a river. You have the United States, the most powerful and rich nation in the world, and then you are connected to Mexico, a third world country. The similarities are very few, the differences are very radical. Juárez is known throughout the world as a city of great violence. Through these last 10 years, many women have been killed. We don't know why. There is a drug war going on between different drug cartels that are fighting for control of the territory. Because we're right next to the border to the United States, then this is a place where illegal shipment of drugs go across the border into the United States. And this sense of lawlessness that is in the city, the sense of despair, the sense of danger, it permeates everything that is around here. To the point that people want to leave the city, people want to move away from Juárez. That was one of the reasons that led us to have to plant a church in El Paso, because we had families that were migrating to the United States to live there, wanting to flee the violence and flee the conditions of our city. So what does that mean for a congregation if these people are at war and one of these men will come in, or his family will come to the church and maybe visit or be converted? And it has happened before. So people can be afraid of that. They can say, we don't want these kind of people in our church. What if somebody decides to execute them while they are at church, and what will happen to our children, etc.? So we've had to pray to God that God will have mercy on these men who are criminals and will be converted. And at the same time, we have to prepare our hearts to open the church to them and share the gospel with them, because there's no hope for them unless the gospel reaches them. And so the church has to grow to the point where we're not just going to receive nice people, but we can even have, and we hope that we will have, a good number of these men and these families that are involved in this violent trade converted and into our church. We're here to preach the gospel to everyone, and even them, they need to hear it.
For 20 years, Carlos and the other pastors of the Sovereign Grace Church of Juarez have been faithful to build upon the gospel. The church has grown to 600 members and has started 3 other churches, but they have dreams, big dreams, to do even more to reach their nation for Christ. As a border city, Juarez influences the rest of Mexico. These pastors want to redeem that influence by recreating in their city what they've experienced at the Sovereign Grace Pastors College in Gaithersburg, Maryland.
I attended the first class of the Gaithersburg's Pastors College back in 1997, and it was such a privilege and a life-changing experience for me and for the rest of my classmates. The model that we were submerged into is something that we want to reproduce in our nation and in the rest of Latin America, because it's something that is totally foreign to most ministers here. We've heard from several, and we trust they are reliable sources, that all throughout Latin America, no more than 10% of all ministers and pastors are formally trained or have any kind of theological training. And of those who have received training, we are not confident that they have received sound, biblically sound training. So we are hoping to be able to contribute to the solution to that circumstance in our nation and in the rest of Latin America.
That solution will be the Latin American Pastors College, slated to open in the fall of 2008 on the grounds of the Sovereign Grace Church in Juarez. Sovereign Grace Ministries provided a grant to construct apartments on the church grounds to house future students and their families. And volunteer teams from various Sovereign Grace churches across the U.S. worked all summer to build the apartments.
We are so blessed. We are so rich in the doctrine and the body of sound doctrine that we've received. And so when we see pastors struggling, making mistakes, affecting the churches, not being able to have a long-lasting impact in our nation, we feel obligated, we feel urged to be able to share what God has given us. We feel so blessed, so rich, that we want to be able to offer that to other men in our nation and in our culture.
The Juarez Church already has some experience in leadership training. 7 years ago, they started a part-time pastors' college to train local leaders. All but one of the students came from existing Sovereign Grace churches. Elias Reyes was the exception. He came to Juarez from another church that was not affiliated with Sovereign Grace. Elias wanted to plant a church, but he didn't want to do it on his own, so he joined the Juarez Church. After graduating from the second class of the part-time Mexican Pastors College, he served as a pastoral intern for another year. Last year, he was sent out to plant the first Sovereign Grace Church in the interior of Mexico.
La ciudad de Aguascalientes, como su nombre lo dice, se distingue por las aguas termales, aunque en realidad hay una seria escasez de agua. También Aguascalientes es conocida como una ciudad por la famosa celebración nacional de la Feria de San Marcos. De igual forma, Aguascalientes es conocido por su tradicional celebración del Día de los Muertos, a tal punto que incluso en la entrada de la ciudad hay un emblema, un símbolo de la muerte que está recibiendo a los visitantes de otras partes. También Aguascalientes es conocida como una ciudad tradicional y conservadoramente religiosa, lo que impide que el evangelio florezca en este lugar. Y aquí es donde precisamente hemos decidido plantar una iglesia. Carlos.
Bueno, Elías, efectivamente Aguascalientes es un lugar que es ideal para plantar una iglesia. Lugar estratégico, en el puro centro del país, geográficamente hablando, rodeado de ciudades importantes. Y hemos recibido muchas preguntas e invitaciones de personas, de pastores y de iglesias alrededor del área, especialmente del área de los Altos de Jalisco, donde hay una gran escasez del evangelio, no hay iglesias, es la zona menos evangelizada de nuestro país.
Sí, es conocido inclusive a nivel mundial también como la ventana 1040, pero de América Latina. Puede haber mucha religión, pero le hemos notado una seria crisis en cuanto al evangelio.
Aunque es poco el evangelio que hay aquí, sin embargo, la gente está muy abierta, la gente recibe, la gente quiere de la palabra de Dios.
Así es, este es el beneficio y algo que estamos viendo. Así como hay sequedad ahora en los pozos de agua en la ciudad, creemos que aquí es donde va a haber vida en Cristo y el reino se va a extender de Aguascalientes a los alrededores. Creemos que el reino de Dios se va a extender así.
Así sea, sí, porque eso es lo que nos motivó a venir estratégicamente, bien ubicada. Podemos hacer muchas cosas de aquí, pero principalmente que la gente necesitaba escuchar el evangelio en Aguascalientes.
Elias Reyes, his wife Ruth, and their 2 daughters arrived in Aguascalientes last year with just one other couple from the Juarez Church. They were received by a small group of people who had expressed interest in having a Sovereign Grace Church in the city, but Elias had no firm commitments from any of them. He began by inviting people to attend the evangelistic outreach course called Alpha. 4 Alpha courses and 200 guests later, Sovereign Grace Church of Aguascalientes has 15 families attending the church, a good number in a region known for being unreceptive to evangelical churches. It's a lot of work, but Elias does not feel he labors alone.
Forma de plantar una iglesia para un pastor de México que no tiene la cobertura de algún ministerio es muy difícil. De hecho, se torna muy difícil. Tienen que empezar a veces, en ocasiones, con lugares donde hay piso de tierra y no hay un lugar apropiado para sentarse, se batalla. Y hemos visto, sin embargo, un apoyo muy grande de parte de Gracia Soberana para plantar esta iglesia. Nos han facilitado los medios para poder tener un lugar apropiado para que las personas que van puedan estar cómodas escuchando la palabra de Dios.
When the Reyes family moved from Juarez to Aguascalientes, they were accompanied by Ramon and Rudalina Chavez. They had been part of the Juarez Church for 10 years and left behind a large extended family. But they felt a call from God to serve sacrificially in their golden years.
Y vimos la necesidad tan urgente, tan apremiante de venir a esta ciudad, porque en esta ciudad hay un espíritu de suicidio. Hay suicidio desde niños pequeños, jóvenes, personas mayores, matrimonios, ancianos. Mi esposo, el Señor estuvo tratando con él durante algún tiempo y él sintió en su corazón el deseo de venir a apoyar. Yo recuerdo que le decía, Ramón, somos como Abraham y como Sara. por nuestra edad. Tal vez no sea mucho lo que podamos hacer, pero estamos aquí en obediencia al Señor, recordando que nosotros tenemos que compartir con otras personas la palabra. Es duro dejar toda una vida en Ciudad Juárez. Dejamos a nuestros 3 hijos, a nuestras 2 nietas, a nuestros amados pastores, a nuestras amistades de toda una vida. Pero venimos obedeciendo al Señor.
The labors of the Reyes and Chavez families have not been in vain. The new members of the Aguascalientes Church are exceedingly grateful to God for what they are receiving there. Raúl and Rosie Jaime were one of the first families to join the church.
Y aquí, gracias a Dios, hemos aprendido mucho lo que no hemos aprendido en muchos años.
Estamos contentos porque Dios nos ha dado claridad en su palabra y nos han hecho sentir ese amor hacia Dios por las enseñanzas que nos han dado, que son muy claras. Mi esposo y yo estamos muy agradecidos con Dios porque nos condujo hasta aquí, nos ha cuidado como sus hijos y nos ha permitido involucrarnos en la iglesia para servirle a Él, para poder ser siervos de Él. Y ahora lo entendemos con mucha claridad por las enseñanzas que nos han dado aquí. Y estamos agradecidos con Él.
Aguascalientes is a little bit of an experiment because we have never planted a church in the interior of Mexico. And we wanted to learn how to do that. And so we've learning that what works, what now doesn't work. How are we going to evangelize starting from zero to build a church from the ground up and without a team and without a lot of help and with limited resources? So that experiment, I think, is providing the experience that we need to be able to plant multiple churches and also to better train our leaders so that when they come to the pastor's college, we'll know in what particular aspects to concentrate their training so they'll be able to be more effective and we'll be able to plant more churches.
If the Lord chooses to grant us our wildest dreams with respect to the Latin American Pastors College, what we are dreaming of is to have several churches located in all the different countries of Latin America, supplying the candidates for a strong, ongoing Pastors College, or perhaps even several Pastors Colleges located in the strategic regions of Latin America. Until He comes back, we want to have a very strong college, graduating candidates that will be capable to plant churches in so many regions of our continent that have never heard the gospel. That's what we are praying for and asking God to do.